There's a shrub in your yard you've thought about taking out and then didn't. It's big, it's been there a while, and you don't know what goes in its place. 12 more shrubs I regret planting. Get a perennial wrong, and you've lost an afternoon. Get a shrub wrong, and it's a decade by the time you know what you bought. Its roots are under your driveway. This fall is the window. The leaves are still on, so you can tell what you're looking at. Once they drop, you're guessing. Number 1 was handed out by our own government as the fix for erosion. West Virginia alone planted 14 million. Nobody chose that one. We were told to. Number 5 is killing the most popular rose in America, and there's no cure. Number 7 is your grandmother's shrub, and I'll tell you why I won't plant it again. Number 12, Weigela. Let's start soft because this one isn't a villain. It's something else, and I think it's worth naming. Weigela is not invasive. It won't poison anything, it won't take over the yard, and nobody's town has banned it. Every garden center in America sells it as low maintenance and heavy blooming, and the tag isn't lying exactly. Here's the regret. It flowers once, early June, pink trumpets, about 2 weeks, and then it's a green shrub for the other 50 weeks of the year. No berries, no fall color, nothing standing in winter but a tangle of gray sticks, and it gets worse without work. Weigela flowers on old wood, so if you don't cut a third of the oldest stems out at the base every year, by year 5 the flowers are only on the outer tips and the middle is bare. You end up with a shrub that's both boring and untidy, which is a hard combination to forgive in a plant that takes up a 5-foot circle. Getting it out is the easy part of this whole video. Shallow, fibrous root plate comes up with a spade in 20 minutes. For the same spot, the native I'd point you at is Dwarf Alberta, northern bush honeysuckle, and no relation to the one at number 2. It flowers yellow from June through August instead of 2 weeks in June. It takes dry shade and the foliage turns red in fall. Weigela isn't a mistake that cost you. It's a mistake that costs you nothing and gives you nothing, which is its own kind of waste. Number 11, Kerria japonica, Japanese Kerria. Yellow flowers like little pom-poms in April and bright green stems that stay green all winter, which is genuinely unusual and genuinely pretty in February. That's the sales pitch, and it worked on me. What nobody puts on the tag is that Kerria travels underground. It sends runners out from the crown, and those runners come up as new shoots 3 feet away, then 6, then wherever they feel like. It doesn't spread the way a plant creeps, it spreads the way a plant colonizes. And it's happy in dry shade, which is exactly where you planted it, because dry shade is where nothing else grows, which is exactly why you'll never outcompete it there. Go read what people say about it. The word that comes up over and over is everywhere. And then somebody in the thread points out that the whole neighborhood used to have it, and now nobody does, because they all gave up and took it out. Removal is the honest part. The roots are deep and brittle, and every piece you snap off and leave behind is a new plant. Dig the whole crown, sift the soil around it, and then walk that area once a month for 2 seasons, pulling shoots. It's not hard work. It's just work that doesn't end when you think it has. If you want yellow flowers in a shrub that stays where you put it, Hypericum prolificum, shrubby St. John's wort. Native through most of the east, 4 feet, tidy, and it flowers in July when the yellow is actually scarce. Number 10, purple leaf sand cherry. Now one that's harder to be angry about because it isn't the plant's fault, it's what the plant is, and nobody tells you. Purple leaf sand cherry, that burgundy black foliage in front of every big box garden center every spring, sold as the color accent for a green foundation bed. It works, it really does look good for the first several years, then it dies. Not from anything you did. This is a short-lived shrub. 10 to 15 years is a normal life, and in the hot, humid half of the country, you're at the low end of that. What kills it is predictable. First, canker, a sunken dead patch that girdles a stem. Then borers, which are grubs that tunnel under the bark, and they go straight for the weakened wood. The plant dies 1 limb at a time over 2 or 3 seasons while you fertilize it and prune it and wonder what you're doing wrong. There's a grower in the Chicago area who put 25 years of watching it into one sentence, and it stuck with me. A fast-growing, cheap, junky shrub. That's blunt, and it's fair. So the regret isn't that it looks bad. It's that you tend to plant for a decade, get attached to it, and then dig it out anyway. You paid for a shrub, and you rented one. If you want that burgundy foliage permanently, plant 9-bark, Diabolo, or summer wine. Same dark leaves, native across most of the country, peeling bark for winter, and it will outlive you rather than the other way around. Removal, easy, and you'll probably be doing it to a half-dead plant anyway. One spade, one afternoon. Quick word before number 9. For anybody who wants all of this in one place, what I pull out, what goes back in, and the parts I haven't gotten to on this channel yet, I put it together in a book at henrysgardensecrets.com. I won't bring it up again. If you want it, it's there. Now, number 9. Dwarf Alberta Spruce, the little green cone. 4 feet tall, perfectly symmetrical, sold in pairs to flank a front door, and there are millions of them in American front yards because they look tidy and they never need pruning. They also die in about a month, and when they do, they don't come back. Spider mites. They're too small to see without holding a white sheet of paper under a branch and tapping it, and Dwarf Alberta Spruce is one of their favorite plants in the entire nursery trade. Hot, dry summer, plant against a south wall reflecting heat, and the population explodes. People describe going from a green shrub to 3/4 brown inside 4 weeks. Here's the part that makes it a regret rather than a setback. Spruce does not regrow from bare wood. Once a section browns out, that section is finished, permanently. So you don't get a damaged plant you nurse back. You get a green cone with a dead brown side facing the driveway, forever. And eventually, you take the whole thing out. Check for mites in June, not August. Paper under the branch, tap, look for moving specks. A strong hose blast every few days through a hot spell genuinely helps, and it's the only free control there is. For the replacement, I'll be straight with you. There is no native shrub that gives you a perfect little green cone, and I'd stop hunting for one. Fothergilla gardeni fills that same spot at that same size, white bottlebrush flowers in spring, and orange and red fall color that a spruce will never give you. Number 8. Pyracantha, firethorn, orange berries all winter, evergreen, and it will grow flat against a wall or into a hedge, nothing walks through. That last part is completely true, and it's why people plant it. Let me be fair before I complain. This one splits people. Plenty of gardeners love it and defend it, mostly for the berries and the birds, and they're not wrong about either. Here's my side. The thorns are about 1/2 inch, they're stiff, and they're set at every leaf node along the whole stem, so there is no safe way to reach into the plant. And a pyracantha thorn is not like a rose thorn. Puncture a knuckle or the back of a hand where there's a joint right under the skin, and you can end up with the tendon sheath inflamed and the whole hand swollen days later. It's a documented injury, not a garden forum exaggeration. If a thorn wound gets hot, red, and stiff, that's a doctor, not a bandage. Then it grows in every direction at once, up the wall, out over the walk, and into itself, so it needs cutting twice a year, and the cutting is the part that gets you. Removal. Heavy leather gauntlets past the wrist, eye protection, and take it down in sections rather than wrestling the whole plant. Bag the prunings, don't drag them. For red winter berries with none of that, red chokeberry, Aronia arbutifolia, native glossy red fruit that hangs into February, brilliant red fall foliage, and you can put your bare hand straight into it. Number 7, common lilac. This is the one I'll get letters about, and I'm going to head one of them off first. 2 days ago, I told you not to put shears anywhere near a lilac in August, and I meant every word. If you've got one, protect its flowers. That's a different question from the one I'm answering now, whether I'd go out and buy another. Common lilac, Syringa vulgaris. Half of you have a memory attached to this plant. A grandmother's back step, a hedge along a driveway, a jar of cut stems on a kitchen table in May. I have one too. I'm not going to pretend I don't, and I'm still not planting another one. 2 weeks, that's the bloom. 2 weeks in May, and it is genuinely one of the great smells in gardening, and I understand exactly why people forgive it. Then July arrives and the leaves go white with powdery mildew. Every year, in every state, on every common lilac I've ever owned. It doesn't kill the plant. It just means that from midsummer on you've got a big gray-white shrub in a prominent spot. Underneath, it suckers, shoots 3 feet out in the lawn that come back however often you mow them. And an old lilac goes hollow and leggy at the base, so the flowers end up 10 feet in the air where you can't smell them. 3 decades of that for 2 weeks a year. If you want lilac, buy a better lilac, Miss Kim stays compact and shrugs off mildew, and the Bloomerang series reblooms into fall instead of quitting in May. Neither is native, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. If what you actually want is the fragrance, the native answer is Itea virginica, Virginia sweetspire. White fragrant spires in June, red-purple foliage that holds into December, and it takes wet ground where nothing else will. Number 6. Big leaf hydrangea in zone 5 and colder. Same situation as the lilac, so let me draw the same line. 2 days ago, I told you this shrub is the one Americans ruin with the pruners more than any other, and that still stands. Keep the one you have and keep your hands off it. This is about whether it should have been sold to you in the first place, because this is the most common complaint that arrives in my comments, and almost everybody who sends it thinks they're the problem. You are not the problem. Big leaf hydrangea, the blue and pink mopheads, sold in every state, in bloom in the pot. It sets next year's flower buds in late summer and carries them on last year's stems all winter. Zone 6 and warmer, those buds survive. Zone 5 and colder, they don't. The cold kills them every winter on a plant that's otherwise perfectly healthy. So you get a big green shrub that leaves out every May and flowers never. And because it looks healthy, you assume it's you. You move it. You feed it. You read that you pruned it wrong, and that one made it worse because there was nothing to prune wrong. The buds were dead in February. Nothing is wrong with your gardening. It's the wrong plant for your winter, and it should never have been shipped to a Zone 4 garden center. The fix takes one word on a tag. Panicle hydrangea, limelight, little lime, and smooth hydrangea, incredible. Both flower on the current year's growth, so winter can do whatever it likes, and you still get flowers. One honest note, because I've heard it from enough of you, Annabelle is the famous smooth hydrangea, and it does bloom reliably, but the heads are heavy, and after a summer storm they end up flat on the ground. Incredible was bred specifically to fix that. If you already have Annabelle, a low hoop support in May solves it. Number 5. Knockout roses, the most planted rose in America, sold as the rose that finally doesn't need spraying, and for about 15 years that was true, which is why they went in by the millions, in front of every strip mall, along every municipal median, and down half the driveways in this country. That's the part that matters, and I'll come back to it. Rose rosette disease. It's a virus, and it's carried by a mite so small it doesn't walk between plants. It blows. The wind moves it. The symptoms are unmistakable once you know them. A shoot of shockingly red, soft, distorted growth, bunched up like a witch's broom, with far too many thorns on it and flower buds that never open properly. There's no cure. There has never been a cure. It is not something you spray your way out of, and I want to be specific here because people will go looking. The standard homeowner treatments do not work on this. Not the granules you water in for aphids, not a regular mite spray off the shelf. The mite that carries this isn't the mite those products were built for. From infection, a rose has about 2 years, then it's gone. Researchers published work last year on cutting out individual infected canes early, before the virus moves through the whole plant. It's promising. It is not proven, and I'm not going to tell you it is. Removal, and please do this properly. Dig the plant with as much root as you can get, bag it, put it in the trash. Do not compost it, and do not chip it. Then don't put another rose in that hole. Native roses, Rosa carolina, Rosa virginiana, are far less bothered by it, and they smell like a rose is supposed to smell. Hit subscribe, and you'll get these without hunting for them. New one every couple of days, and nothing on this channel gets recommended because somebody paid for it, which is how a shrub the government gave away ends up at number 3. 4 left, and they're the 4 you fight the longest. Number 4, Crepe Myrtle. For everybody in the South, and this is the one I expect the most argument about, because Crepe Myrtle is practically a regional identity. 3 separate problems, and they arrived at different times. The first is Crepe Myrtle bark scale. It showed up in Texas in 2004 and has spread across the South and up the East Coast since, Virginia by 2020, Delaware the same year. You don't notice the insects. What you notice is that the trunk goes black and greasy looking with sooty mold, and then the mold drips onto everything underneath, the mulch, the shrubs, the patio furniture. The second is that it seeds. Every bed within throwing distance gets crepe myrtle seedlings, and they root fast and pull hard. The third one is ours, not the plants. Every winter, half the country cuts them off at shoulder height into knuckled stumps. If you're going to keep yours, the rule is one line long. Never cut a branch thicker than a pencil. That's it. Everything wrong with the shape of American crepe myrtles comes from breaking that rule. Now, one honest update, because the internet will only tell you the scary half. The University of Maryland found scale populations collapsing across a lot of sites in 2024, apparently because ladybugs and other predators finally caught up with it. So this may turn out to be a boom that burns itself down rather than a permanent condition. I'd hold off on removing a healthy tree over it. If you're planting new, the native that does the same job, small flowering tree, 4-season structure, is fringe tree, Chionanthus virginicus. No scale, no seedlings. Number 3, autumn olive and Russian olive. Here's where the list turns, and it stays turned through number 1. Silver-backed leaves, small sweet red or yellow fruit, and it grows in dirt that nothing else will touch, which is exactly why it was handed out. Conservation offices, extension agents, and state wildlife programs distributed these for windbreaks, erosion control, and wildlife food for decades, sometimes with a hunting license. If you have one on a rural property, there's a real chance nobody in your family ever bought it. One shrub makes around 200,000 seeds a year. Birds eat the fruit and carry them for miles, which means your one shrub is not the problem. Your one shrub is a seed factory for the woodlot half a mile away. And it does something worse than spread. It fixes nitrogen at the roots, so it changes the chemistry of the soil it's standing in. Ground that's had autumn olive on it for 20 years is richer in nitrogen than it should be, which sounds like a favor and isn't. The natives that belong there evolved for lean soil, and now they lose to whatever likes it rich. Take the shrub out, and the ground still isn't theirs. Restricted or banned in a long list of states now, Minnesota among them. For removal, cut and dig the crown, then walk the ground every spring for 3 years pulling seedlings. Small ones come out cleanly after rain. The native that fills the same job and pays you better, serviceberry, amelanchier, white flowers in April, blueberries in June that are honestly good, and orange fall color. Number 2, bush and Amur honeysuckle. The same story, and it was handed out by the same offices for wildlife, for windbreaks, for hedgerows. Amur, moros, Tatarian, arching stems, paired leaves, red berries in fall, hollow pith if you snap a stem, which is the quickest way to tell it from a native. The reason this one is at number 2 and not further down is what it does to light. It leaves out earlier in spring than almost anything else in an American woodland, and it holds its leaves later into fall. That's weeks of shade at both ends of the year, right at ground level, exactly when oak and maple and hickory seedlings need the light. Walk under an old stand of it and look at the floor, and there's nothing young growing, not fewer seedlings, none. That woodlot has no next generation, and it doesn't look like a disaster from 10 feet away, which is why nobody catches it. The berries are the second half. Birds eat them, so it looks like it's feeding wildlife, but the fruit is low in fat compared with native berries, and fat is the whole point for a bird about to fly south. Full crop, wrong fuel, invasive across more than 20 states. For removal, dig the crown out. The roots are shallow and wide rather than deep. Anything under 3 feet pulls by hand the day after rain. The native swap I'd make is Blackhaw viburnum, Viburnum prunifolium, the same size and habit with real fall color. And I'll say the quiet part. Viburnum leaf beetle is spreading, and Blackhaw is one of the less favored species, which is why I'm naming that one and not arrowwood. Number 1, Multiflora rose. This is the one the government gave away. The Soil Conservation Service pushed it from the 1930s on, a living fence, erosion control, cover for game birds. West Virginia alone put in more than 14 million plants. Nobody sat down and chose this. Farmers were told it was the responsible thing to do. It is now a noxious weed across more than a dozen states and illegal to sell in a good many of them. One plant makes up to 500,000 seeds in a year, and those seeds stay alive in the soil for up to 20. The canes arch over, touch the ground, and root where they touch, so one shrub becomes a thicket you cannot walk through. And the thorns curve backward. You get in easily. Getting out costs you a sleeve. This is not an afternoon. Cut it, dig the crown, then come back for seedlings every spring for 3 to 5 years. For the bank it was planted to hold. Fragrant sumac, grow low. Native holds soil, 3 feet tall, and it stays where you put it. 12 shrubs: Weigela, Kerria, purple leaf sand cherry, dwarf Alberta spruce, Pyracantha, common lilac, big leaf hydrangea north of zone 6, knockout roses, crepe myrtle, autumn olive, bush honeysuckle, and the multiflora rose somebody's grandfather was told to plant. Fall is the window, and the leaves are still on, so you can see what you're dealing with.